A person who I have tremendous respect for, Ananth Mahadevan, is going to be speaking with me. I've just finished reading this incredible book. For those of you who are watching us on video, you'll see Ananth looking very dapper, holding some television tapes in his hand on the cover. It's called Once Upon a Prime Time. And really, it's his journey on Indian television. I beseech you to go and buy this. It's available on all online as well as on ground stores. And if you stay on through the course of this interview, you'll know exactly why you should go and get yourself a copy. So wonderful to see you. And my first question is, I hope friends and family are safe and healthy. That's the first question at the top.
Thank you so much for your concern, and I wish you the same too. So far, so good. We have managed to evade, the imminent dangers that are facing us in this very dystopian times. And as long as we sort of exert absolute ultimate caution, I think there's no need to be really fearful. But it's very, very important not to be complacent during these times. And I'm glad that a lot of people are taking these precautions, and I have managed to sort of stay away.
Wonderful. So I'm not going to ask you the morose question saying, why have you decided to write this book? In fact, the question I should have asked you is that why did it take so long? Because a man of your Tambram intellect and experience should have done this earlier. So I'm going to just dive into individual instances in the book which meant a lot to me and spoke a lot to me. I'm just very fascinated in all the years of knowing you that you did film with Peter O'Toole, indeed in Jodhpur, and this was during the filming of Kim. And I leave you to tell the story of how you just don't have a copy of a picture with him. And I found that very ironical and hilarious at a lot of levels.
Well, like I've stated in my book, it was my baptism into show business. I mean, imagine doing your first film with Sir Peter O'Toole, and even if it was just 3 scenes in Rudyard Kipling's novel Kim. And in fact, like I told him, sir, this is not even a dream come true, because I wouldn't have dared to dream, even my wildest dreams, that I would actually be working with you, you know. And he smiled, and I said, if it's possible, I mean, I would request you at the end of this schedule to give me a photograph with you, which I will treasure all my life. And he remembered at the end of the schedule, when we wrapped, at least my portion wrapped, he called his secretary, and he asked me, have we have a photograph taken? I said, no, sir, not yet. And so he called his secretary and said, Madalena, what's the name? I don't remember now. I said, okay, have these pictures taken and make sure it reaches Ananth. Of course, they made sure that it never reached.
Oh, so,
And so was I sheer lucky, because I got friendly with the continuity girl, because she used to click all the stills, and she used to show it to me, and it was a Polaroid camera, a snap which just came out. And at the end of the day, I said, if you could just give me one of these stills from my collection. And that was a decision which proved providential, because those photographs never came. So all I have now is a hazy Polaroid snap, which I managed to reproduce in the book. But then that's proof, living proof, that I did rub shoulders with the great Peter O'Toole. And well, I guess it was a very auspicious beginning.
Ananth, it is not of particular interest to me that your father didn't approve of your profession. I mean, it's the story of all our lives, most of our lives in the community. They
Very
expect us
true.
to be
Yeah.
scholars. But
Yeah.
what did interest me is, pardon my calling him that, but it's a very British phrase. Your old man and you took a course together, which I thought was incredibly cute. Let's talk about that.
Yes, imagine going back to school with your father, because he suddenly got interested in public speaking, and he said, let's do some courses. It's only on the weekends, on Sundays, and although we had to travel all the way from Wadala to Baikala, which
Oh,
took us a
sweet.
good 1 hour in those days too, by the VST buses, the travel local transport. We sat on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. We reached Baikala at 11 o'clock. I think it was at one of those cathedral schools. And we did this course, and it was, I think, over a period of 2 months. And I was wondering why he was doing it, because he was the man who was such a wonderful public speaker. And I heard him delivering a speech at his boss's silver jubilee at one of the hotels in Marine Drive, and I was extremely impressed. And everyone applauded, and they said, "Your father is a wonderful orator." And so I was wondering, why the hell did he have to do this? I needed it, you know. But it was, I don't know. Now looking back at it, at that point of time, I didn't marvel at it that much as much I thought it was just part of academics, and it's absolutely natural for a father to accompany his son, even if it was as a student. But today, looking back at it, and a lot of people getting back to me and saying, "Good God, this actually happened." And I said, "Yes, can you believe it? This was a chapter in my life, and I'm so glad it stayed with me, stayed long enough for me to, register it and put it down in the book."
Debuts are unforgettable experiences. There's no doubt about that. You will, through all your living days, remember it. Ados Pados, a 13 episode with Sai Paranjpe as director, was really your TV debut in that sense. You played Chintamani. But again, what I found remarkable was you coming out of Tejpal Hall during a performance. And I want you to complete that because that's such an important part of this book.
Uh, Ados Pados was actually based on Sai Paranjpe's own creation, a Marathi play called Shakke Shejari, in which she, got together a lot of weird neighbors in the neighborhood and sort of explored their lives. And the play that I was doing at Tejpal was a Hindi play called Kachua Khargosh, which is incidentally was an adaptation of Sasani Kasav, which Sai Paranjpe had made into a film called Katha. So, it was a very, very uncanny coincidence that I was actually performing a play which she had converted into a film when my debut on her show was happening that Thursday night. It was a sponsored show because normally we don't perform at Tejpal or these huge auditoria unless it is a sold out show. So I had this very small 5 minute, I think, or 3 minute break in between in the wings, and I just sneaked out, opened the back door of the stage, and I went out, and there was this huge colony out there, and I could hear my voice reverberating from every television set because. Television had started off that week, and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, people had already attuned themselves to this habit. So Thursday, 9 o'clock was Aros Paros, and I could hear myself. And here was this thing. Oh my God, I have to get back. I have to get back there. But can I just finish this, hearing this scene and getting back there? And today, when I think of it, I'm horrified at what I did, because when I saw this film Birdman, and when he goes out of the door, and then his costume gets stuck there, and he comes in this pathetic condition. Oh God! But that was an adventure of the mind, an adventure in all senses, and very strange that I had to listen to myself and not see myself in my first ever debut on television.
That's a very beautiful little nugget. Sridhar Sagar keeps popping up in the book at strategic points, justifiably so. He's played a very important part in your life. And Ghar Jamai is Subbu. But what I found, a moment of great pathos, and it really happened, is you went back to buy the remake rights for part two, and he sold it for a mere, well, yes, fill in the blanks. And really, this, for those of you millennials or Gen Xers who don't know, this was iconic stuff on television. Satish Shah, Farida Jalal. So, Ghar Jamai, Sridhar Sagar.
Yeah, that was a moment because, Gharjamai gave me a standing which, even today, a lot of people call me Subbu. And if people say that, public memory is short, I refute it totally, because they still address me as Chintamani and Subbu. So when I had this brainwave and I had a producer, and I thought I should, sort of do another season of Ghar Jamai, although I would not act in it, I would want to direct it. I would want to make it, because I was sort of so into it and so fascinated by this entire comedy of manners between the North and the South. At that point, Sridhar Sagar had virtually retired. He had stopped working, and most of his shows were off air. And I went to his Pedder Road residence, and I went in very artistically designed house, as was his office. And he said a strange thing. He said, "I knew you would come." I said, "Excuse me." No, there was a voice that told me that you would come. You would come and we would discuss work, and we would take a lot of things forward. I said, I've come here to ask you something very strange. I've come here to ask you the rights of the very show that you gave me a titular role in, Gharjamai. And he said, certainly, and I'm glad that you're doing it. And he actually gave it for a pittance. I mean, today I feel extremely sorry that it was just a 20,000 rupee check that was exchanged in during these times when people would have, taken advantage of situation like this and virtually sort of run your bank account dry. So I respect the man for that. I wish he was around and he, did a lot of much more work because he was very intelligent. He was the man who introduced the Dallas, the dynasty, and the Santa Barbara culture into Indian television with Khandan. And I just consider myself extremely fortunate that I was chosen to play Gharjamai, the lead, the main character, Subbu, when he also had Pratap Pothan in mind and he had a couple of other people in mind. So that was a very, very lucky break. And if I would say that I haven't been lucky all my life, these are one of my lucky breaks. I must admit that. And yes, it was very poignant when I went up to Sridhar and he gave these things. And he was hoping that I would be able to do a lot of his works and sell a lot of his works to a lot of channels. But unfortunately, that did not happen. But Garjamai, with characters created by Sridhar Sagar, is today still being rerun on Z. And I'm glad that Sagar and his idea live on.
For those of you who joined us late, Ananth Mahadevan's Once Upon a Prime Time is available at all online as well as on ground stores. It's a very beautiful yeah, tribute to television in a lot of ways, and he weaves his own life's journey through it very seamlessly. What I love also, for those of you who like structures, is that he's actually talked about various phases of television. You know, the socio dramas, the reality television, even the so-called news boom. And like I said, it's peppered with salient moments from his life. And there was this whole phase when, the great parallel filmmakers in cinema took to television. I'm talking about Basuda and Rajni, and you were actually acting with the nation's darling, Priya Tendulkar, in a play at the time. So, talk about that, and also the fact that through this entire phase, you held a day job in Bombay publicity. And I find it almost like out of a Basuda film that these calls would keep coming for Ananth Mahadevan, the actor. And your boss, of course, was a very benevolent man, but I don't think that your colleagues took to it very kindly.
Well, that was a routine. When I look back now, I almost start panting because I used from Wadala, I used to walk to the station from my house. I used to take a train, the 9:10 train, which would land up at VT station at 9:45. I would walk 15 minutes, cross over to Churchgate, go over to the Eros Minuet, and watch a film, which was a preview by one of these foreign film distributors, whether I remember Kamat Saab and all of them, George and everyone, because I was a film critic for the Daily. And then rush out, catch a bus from Churchgate Station to Grant Road, get into Bombay publicity, and I'm very wary of all the prying eyes who are looking at me. Oh, this guy gets all the privilege because Mr. V.P. Satya says, as long as you finish your work, you're free to go anywhere and do what you like. So I come in there, I write all the copies of the ads, get the copies done, have them dispatched for the next day's newspapers, and there were a huge bunch of them. Believe you me, no advertising agency would have had this much space in almost every possible daily newspaper almost every day. And then I get the ads ready for the next day, and then I have to leave the office by 5:50 so that I reach Grant Road at 6:10, because that's the fast to Bandra. Because after Bandra, I get off at car, I go for my rehearsals, and then I rehearse for the play. Or if it is an evening show at the Prithvi, I go to the Prithvi and I perform. So that was what was my routine. And looking back at it now, it does seem, how the hell did I do it? What was it that drove me? What was the passion? Of course, the passion is still there. The fire is still burning, but it's burning on another scale, another platform, another level these days, because I'm trying to sort of, better myself, try and grow as a filmmaker, as a director, as an actor. But at that point, when I was an absolute novice and I used to get into these crowded trains and, be recognized when, sometimes they say, oh, what's this guy doing? Is he the same guy? And all those betting, small little bets used to be laid. Oh, yeah, I bet he's not the same guy. Why would he travel by a crowded second-class compartment like this? And of course, a lot of journalists took jibes at that. He said, oh, this guy who was traveling by a second-class compartment, what does he think he is? And how does he think? How has he achieved all this? I was wondering, why do people behave like this? I mean, do actors only have to travel by their Mercedes and their Toyotas, and do they only have to have luxurious lives? Can't they be real people? So yes, I used to get all these calls, and one day Bashuda called up in the office, and then Bashuda bol raha hu. I said, yes, Bashuda, good evening, what is it? Rajni karega? Sir, exactly, these were the words. Rajni karega? He didn't mention any words. So I said, sir, of course, I will. No, he said, Darpan karega, Darpan. Yes, Bashuda, of course. Darpan was a very popular short series that he was doing on Sunday. 500 rupees dunga. He almost expected me to say, Dada, what? I said, Dada, yes, of course, yes. अच्छा मैं बताता हूँ 2 दिन में मैं डेट देता हूँ तुम आ जाना. And then I keep the phone down. I look at my other colleague, and he knows that I have got another assignment, and he's going to play hooky for 2 days now. He won't be available. So I sit down and do all the advanced work. I write everything and try and do as many ads as possible, copies as possible for 2 days, and give it to them, and then go and shoot. And what a wonderful shoot it was, Vasudha. The very, what would one say, very earthy, simple style. There were no afflictions, there were no mannerisms, there was nothing that really sort of, affected you from the film world, the kind of performances that he used to take out from you. And I was fortunate to have Rohini Hattangadi, who was actually fresh from the success of Gandhi at that point. So it was great discussing a lot of things with her. And of course, I used to see her plays at the Chabaldas Hall, and I knew her that way, but it was good to share space with her. So that was Bashuda, or whether it was Bashuda, all these calls that came in, Sridhar Sagar, Yash Chopra, Bashuda, Hema Ji, and Hrishikesh Mukherjee. Yes, I remember. All those calls happened at Bombay Publicity. And it was a challenge, because every time someone called me, the nervousness of having to fulfill that assignment correctly, along with not letting Mr. Sati feel that I'm neglecting the work, the space that he has offered me, thanks to which I am able to sort of get in, I'm in touch with these people. So it was a very seesaw kind of thing that I had to balance. It was a war of ethics, and I hope I have come clean.
And this was simultaneously, playing out along with the rise and rise of Priya Tendulkar and Rajni, which really brought to the fore Basuda's style of filmmaking on television, and Rajni as the sari-clad crusader.
Yeah. Actually, Rajni was not Rajni, as if you read the book, you know what the history of Rajni was. It was supposed to be Here's Lucy at one point of time. There were other actors who were involved. And finally, when it boiled down to the tirade that came on television, it boiled over so much that it became a very revolutionary series. And I was working, of course, I was very, very active in theatre those days. And Vijay Tendulkar's play Anji was the play that, Priya Tendulkar wanted to do, because of course it was again the title part, and it was the journey of a girl from her house to finding a sort of a man for herself, and finally the tragedy of getting raped in the process in the end, and she comes back. So that was and I play a very lecherous guy along the way in her journey. So Tendulkar, Priya and me on stage was very interesting for audiences because they were seeing Chintamani and Rajni instead of Anji and Prabhu Dayal, the character that I was playing. So sometimes you have this little जो लहर उठती है ना audience में, So, you try to get them back into this. No, it's not the feather brain Chintamani you're looking at. You're looking at a very lecherous kind of guy. This guy is going to, make her life miserable. So for God's sake, please don't look at me like the simpleton that you know me as. Or, Priya, a very vulnerable Anji. She is not the strong girl who sort of stands up to everything in society. So we were playing characters that were totally in contrast to our images on television. And that was a challenge that, was posed to us to break those images. And that's why I thank theater. I continue to thank theater all my life, because till today I continue to do theater, and that is where salvation lies.
Also, what's beautiful about the book is you not only narrate your instances from your own life, but friends around you and what they've gone through, and the underlying wit through it all is quite amazing. And it's also a telling comment on the days of Doordarshan. I mean, going to Mandi House, the bureaucracy, how serials or dramas were just taken off the air at the whim of fancy of somebody, how slots were, sometimes relegated to places. And really, it's amazing. We have a mutual friend, Vivek Vaswani, had no clue that he camped in Delhi to meet the Prime Minister for a pilot.
Yeah.
Please talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. There are three parts to your question. Number one, yes, there was a lot of activity.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it was buzzing with activity. And initially I wanted to write what would be an autobiography. I mean, I wanted to sort of recount this journey. It was amazing. I couldn't believe that I actually existed, survived 40 years. So, just as a tribute to those 40 years, I wanted to write something. Then I realized that how incomplete the whole journey was without the works of my contemporaries, without the works of my seniors and my peers. And then it occurred to me that I did not want to make an anthology of Indian television. That was not my idea at all. That would be very boring. You can prepare lists. I do not want to. I wanted to tell a story of the stories that you saw on television. So that was the challenge, and I had to structure it in such a way that it almost reads like a screenplay now, a very
It
back and
does.
forth, non-linear story. So you have to catch up with something towards the end of the book. You catch up with something which is supposed to happen in the beginning of the book, somewhere in the middle. So that's what it was, and I'm so glad I did that, because otherwise, all the great work that a lot of people did, which I was not part of, like Sham Babu, or Govind Nailani, or even Malgudi days. I couldn't be part of, but I always wanted to be part of that. But it would have been very, very unfair if I had, sort of omitted all those works and just sort of blown my trumpet and described what a great, incredible journey it was. So I'm glad I did that. So now it looks more complete, more rounded off, and I'm doffing my hat to all these people, a tribute to all these people who were the founding fathers of Indian television. Because all said and done today, if all these channel heads are sitting there, the programmers and the CEOs, they have to thank their stars that it was Doordarshan, and it were these offbeat filmmakers. Very, very important. That is the biggest point that I make in the book, is that television was not started by television makers, but filmmakers who went into television. They sort of crossed over from one medium to another, a bigger medium to a smaller medium, experimented ever so successfully, and gave us something that was something to remember. And as for all the bureaucracy on Doordarshan, I mean, at Mandi House, I guess that was only to be expected, because it was a government organization. And suddenly everyone and anybody who had some money wanted to make a television show. And irrespective of, I've always maintained that the arts, the cinema, especially cinema and television and theater, people believe that it's always the last resort. If you do not, because they do not ask you for a qualification or a degree, if you do not make it anywhere else in life, acting to hai hi, this is what they say. Films to hai hi. Mind, it's taken for granted. And that is what happened at Mandi House. A lot of, like they said in those palas, used to come in and give in their scripts and their projects, and even got them passed because they knew the guys at Mandi House, and because they were giving them their favorite Kolkata, meetha pans. So that's how people actually got through. But I'm glad that along with all the riffraff, we also had the class, and that class wasn't missed out. So we had Gulzar, Hrishikesh Mukherjee, Vashu Chatterjee, Yash Chopra, Ramesh Sippy, Govind Melani, M.S. Satyu, Sridhar Sagar, of course, and Kundan Shah, Aziz Mirza, Saeed Mirza, all these wonderful names. And then, of course, the new age came in with Anand Mahindru and Pankaj Parashar and all of them. Later, of course, when television expanded and went into the satellite channels, the new age, the filmmakers of today, they started off on the satellite channels, like Anurag Bashu, Anurag Kashyap, and so many of them. So that's what it was. So at that point of time, till the 2000s, I mean, before the beginning of the millennium, television used to be, watchable, very, very watchable. But after that, the rot set in. Somehow something went seriously wrong. The planning went wrong, the programming went wrong, the reading of the medium went wrong, and we are left with the remains today to pick up the remains and get back to the glory of television. So that in a nutshell is the journey of 38 years.
What Ananth is talking about briefly is he's gone into details in the book. Hansal Mehta directing Khana Khazana, then hiring Vishal Bhardwaj from Meerut to write for him. Rishte on Z, which was the breeding ground for Imtiaz Ali and Rag Basu. But I want to just fast forward a little to the rise and rise of Shahrukh Khan. Hema Malini had cast him in a film, and ostensibly you say in your book that because her daughters were fans of his at the time.
Yeah.
And again, Vivek Vaswani comes into the picture because he drives Shahrukh from Kaf Parade. So,
Yeah.
and these were also very interesting times because you were hanging out with Saeed Mirza, Kundan Shah, Aziz Mirza, Nukkad and Circus, and Manoranjan was happening. Really fascinating times, Ananth.
Yes, I remember we were doing Nupur together, and Hemaji suddenly, popped this question: "What do you think of Shah Rukh Khan?" I said, "Yeah, interesting actor. We saw him in 4G, and Anna likes him very much." So I said, "Yes, there is, I see a certain volatile energy in the guy, and that comes across. So no, I want to cast him in my new film, Dil Ashna, and want to call him." So I said, "Okay." So that's how she spilled the beans for that she was going to cast Shah Rukh in Dil Ashna Hai. And of course, Hemaji and me, till today, I mean, she wrote the foreword to the book. So you can imagine what kind of an innings, a long innings it has been. And only the other day, I spoke to her. She was at Ahana's place, and she said she'll come back to Juhu. And I personally want to go there and gift her the book. And she said, yes, of course, I want a copy of the book. So that's a great feeling. That's so nice to know that all these actors whom you looked up to, like Hemaji, Sharmila Tagore, Rajesh Khanna, you looked up to them as in your school. You watched them on the big screen. Again, never imagined that you would rub shoulders with them. And I managed to actually work with all of them on television. And yes, Vivek Vaswani did drive Shah Rukh Khan all the way down to Hemaji's place, with Shah Rukh saying, "I'm just going to meet her out of sheer respect, and I'm not going to sign the film." And in 2 minutes, he was eating out of her hands and he had signed the film. So it was that kind of a jump cut that happened. Shah Rukh came in a big way. Shah Rukh and me, we were together in Circus. Aziz Mirza's, of course, just an episode for me. But Shah Rukh and me then had a long-standing relationship. Like although we didn't share screen space in Bazigar, I played his father, and then of course we had fun on the sets of Badshah and Yes Boss. But what was good about it was when he set up his company, Red Chili's Television. He called me and he asked me to make his first fiction film, and he said, "I want to pay a tribute to Ye Jo Hai Zindagi, and let's do Ye Jo Hai Zindagi, and you can have Aziz Mirza as consultant on the script." And that got me. I said, if Aziz is going to be the consultant, it's going to be a learning process for me, and nothing would be greater than that. So I said, yes, we'll do it. But I said, let's not name it Ye Jo Hai Zindagi, because people would expect the same
That's right.
thing, So let's call it something. Ye Jo Hai Zindagi was a generic title for me. It meant anything. Anybody could have, any serial could be Ye Jo Hai Zindagi. So I said, let's call it Ghar Ki Baat Hai. So it's more like it's all in the house. It's in the family kind of thing. So we called it Ghar Ki Baat Hai. And we did 26 episodes on NDTV Imagine. And it was nice of Shahrukh to have called me to direct that show for him. And yes, it's been very rewarding and nice. Yes.
You were very close to Rishi, that Hrishikesh Mukherjee, and he never forgot your birthday.
Yeah.
But you did feel Anand left Ananth when he passed,
Yeah.
and I'm quoting you.
Yeah. Rishida, like the first call I got from him for the series Hum Hindustani, and I had to leave Bombay Publicity and reach his bungalow Anupama at Carter Road. And obviously, going from Grand Road to Bandra, there I was about half an hour late, and I was petrified. I said, "God, this man who is a stickler for punctuality wouldn't take even a late coming from Mr. Bachchan." And here I am for my first assignment with him, and I'm late, and I rushed in, panicking, absolutely palpitating. Anand, बैठो बैठो बैठो. तो ये जो character है ना, ये जो हम हिंदुस्तानी में 7 character हैं, and he just got on with it. He came to the point. And that is why he was such a great editor. He never stretched anything or never overstated or said anything that was not supposed to be said. And from that day onwards, it was a wonderful working relationship. We used to play chess on the sets. He used to just sort of stretch himself out because of his gout problem. He used to play chess and say, "Oh no, chalo, 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 shot do, baad mein aao." And then he used to move a coin here and there. Sir, no, do not. Arey, shot de kya aao? And then we used to do the shot and come back. And there was this one scene I remember. I don't think I've mentioned it in the book. There was a scene where me and I think Ajit Vachani had to say something and then run off into the distance so that, we escaped somebody, So we say that and we ran. And we ran and we ran and we ran. And I was telling Ajit, why is he not saying cut? And he had very cleverly, when I looked back, he had broken for lunch and they'd all sat together for lunch. He said, "Jane do, bhagne do in dono ko," So he was that kind of a man, full of humor. And all the anecdotes that I have mentioned in the book are absolutely memorable and priceless about Anand, about Rajesh Khanna's dates, about Mr. Bachchan and his last film, and about the very, very sad event that I could just not get an opportunity to be a co-director with him on his last film, what he wanted to be his last film. And when I met him at the Leelavati, he was there in this very dark room. And it was really, really, I would say very gloomy. It wasn't a room that would unhealthy people would be in, and a sick man would be in, but he made it more gloomy by sort of, dimming the lights. Maybe he wanted it that way. And he gestured to me and he did this. I said, "What is he doing?" And then he took a book and he wrote. He said, don't come and see me because it affects you. I can see it affects you." And yes, that was the last I saw of him. But the amount of knowledge, the amount of, what would I say, every possible thing, everything that a good man should be, a good actor should be, a good filmmaker should be, I imbibed from him, whether it was from controlling budgets to editing to filmmaking to thinking the way he did. I could imbibe, and I consider myself extremely fortunate to have had this relationship.
Ananth Mahadevan's Once Upon a Prime Time, his journey on Indian television is out on all on-ground as well as online stores. Please go get it. And I'm in a gripping conversation with him. And really, like I said, it just flows like literary water, because he talks about the great mythologicals on television, the literary classics on television, even the great detectives of television. And really, Mahabharat, Ramayana, Ravi Chopra, B.R. Chopra, Ramanand Sagar, and then the Dheeraj Kumar mythologicals. Some of them had cheesy special effects, there's no denying that. But it just changed lifestyles. To say changed television would be too small. And you saw that play out right in front of your eyes. talk about the beginning of the great mythologicals.
Yes, a lot of, most of these mythologicals changed hands. They were supposed to be done by other people. Mahabharata was, incidentally, Satyajit Ray's dream, and then it was even offered to Bashu Chatterjee before it went to B.R. Chopra. And it was the beginning of big television going big, really big. And suddenly it became a 1 hour Sunday mega slot, and big budgets came in, and the whole look of television almost became cinematic. I agree with you that most of the special effects were cheesy. Even Ravi Chopra confessed to it and said that he wasn't very happy with the initial special effects that were offered, and he wanted to change them, even at the cost of going over budget. But all said and done, that was the best technology that was available in those days. So if it was today's technology and yesterday's thinking, we would have had more spectacular shows. But we must consider what it was. I mean, we still marvel at Ten Commandments and the Bible and Ben-Hur and the kind of work that was done in those days. So let's give it its due. And yes, the gods came in a big way, and were they right? Because they knew that this was the pulse of the audience. This is exactly where the audience would want to go. And even if it was a great show, or even if it was a very weak show, people compromised. They didn't mind sitting in front of a television set and watching it. I mean, I think somewhere it all stemmed from the fact that a film like Jai Santoshi Ma, which was made on a shoestring budget and was absolutely tacky, did 100 weeks in front of Sholay. So everyone was taking a cue and saying, look, all it has to be is a mythological, and that is the formula for television. So that became a huge formula on television. It still is. There are a lot of gods running around, trying to woo disciples and making them believe that they're right there on their television set. But the wave that Mahabharata and Ramayana started, that wave has never been replicated. But one point I'd like to make here is when Doordarshan decided to replay all these shows recently during the COVID pandemic. And a lot of these shows, the mythologicals, the detectives, and even shows like Udan and Kanun, and a lot of other shows which have come up, have proved one thing. Because when I speak to a lot of programmers, CEOs of channels these days, they seem to be absolutely emphatic that the youth of today, the audience of today, is a totally different audience. It's another generation. They are looking for something different, and we are trying to crack the code as to what they want. And that is the reason why we are indulging in these kind of daily soaps and these kind of stereotyped characters. But what happened was, when all these shows were replayed on television and the youth watched them, took to them, started liking them, it proved that all these, how wrong these programmers were, and how far away from target their reading was. So I hope they take a cue now and they go back to classic television and try and at least recoup or get together the people who made television. I mean, we still have some veterans like Ramesh Sippy, Aziz Mirza. We have Sai Paranjpe, who is virtually retired to Pune and refusing to come back to television in its current state of affairs. If we could only get them together and see if something could be resurrected here, and something of the old television brought back to the new generation, we would have done Indian television a great favor.
Well, you're a modest man. You left yourself out in that pantheon of greats. I would like to see you on a committee.
I'm no
like
great.
that.
I'm no great at all. I know I am a student, and I'm a student every day. I realize how bad a student I am, because every day I'm learning something.
Oh, sweet. The literary classics, the logical progression is to bring that up now, because you do regret not being in Malgudi days. The literary classic R.K. Narayan, Shankar Nag, Malgudi days, and then Swami and Friends eventually. And round about this time was also when Gulzar was creating Mirza Ghalib in Nasir Saab. and Farooq Sheikh playing Shrikant, and then
Right.
Tenali Rama happened.
Right.
For beautiful literary classics recreated on the TV. Must have made you very very happy as a student.
Of course, I was happy that Indian classics were being shown on television, and books like, Mujrim Hazir, Asami Hazir, were being adapted into shows. And they were most of these books were, classics which were being adapted into shows, Shrikant or so many of them. So what is happened eventually is that we do not consider this great tradition of Indian literature, whether it's Bengali, Marathi, Tamil, Malayalam, or other languages. We do not consider them worthy of even a web series or some kind of limited finite series these days on television. I do not know where the vision has gone. Is it because of the lack of knowledge? Is it because people have stopped reading and have lost their way somewhere in this mad race to get eyeballs and TRPs and just get the moolah in? Have we lost out on the roots? So it's a question that needs to be asked. It's a question that needs to be looked into, because there's a lot of treasure, waiting for us to rediscover, readapt, and go in for some great shows on television. And I will always regret that no one still has got back, even after reading the book, with ideas or with, probably concepts that would make literature come alive on television. So hats off to those people who did it in those days.
And the great detectives of television. I mean, I pretty much grew up watching Pankaj Kapoor and Pankaj Parashar with Karamchand, your friend Rajit Kapoor playing Bomkesh in Basudas Bomkesh Bakshi, and of course the great Satyajit Ray, Satyajit Ray Presents, which wasn't
Yes.
actually directed by him, but
No.
directed by Sandeep Ray.
Yeah.
And of course, you in effect do talk about Commander being the last of the Mohicans, and then CID eventually. So again, interesting phase, detectives, and crime still continues on television, though, in very hard-hitting, scandalous kind
Yeah.
of shows. But this was different. This was the old school Sherlock Holmes, Watson kind of,
Right. Right.
our own versions of that, and these
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
writers
Yeah. Yeah.
who wrote, Sardindu Chatterjee and Ray himself.
Yeah. Now, I would single out Byomkesh Bakshi and Feluda for that, because they were based on classics, of course. Byomkesh Bakshi was a classic. And although we did have very modern detective series like Karamchand or Commander or, CID, or like you said today, we have India's Most Wanted, and also all so-called reality adaptations. But it was Byomkesh Bakshi and Feluda that I would rate these two as the top two detective shows on Indian television.
I am absolutely fascinated to learn that during Ramesh Sippy's Bunyad grand finale episode, there was a massive outage in Bombay. I leave you to tell the rest of the story. It's part of Once Upon a Prime Time, your book.
We were all set in front of the television sets. I remember it was a Tuesday, and like I've said in the book, I mean, as most people know, Bunyad was twice a week, like Hum Log. It was supposed to replace Hum Log and get the twice a week series. So it was on Tuesday 9 o'clock and Saturday 9 o'clock. So everyone was like waiting for the grand finale of Bunyad, the 104th episode, and suddenly the power failed, and it was like whoo, you could hear the collective whoos in the society, and what the hell, oh god, we're missing it. And except Bombay, Mumbai, I think the rest of the country saw it. And of course Doordarshan was quick to pick it up. Ramesh Sippy was quick to pick it up. Ramesh Sippy was in Bombay those days, so of course that hit him hard. And of course the sponsors, because they lost out on maximum viewership. And of course it was retelecast, but that was the first of its kind, that when a television show, because of power outage, was telecast, and it happened to be the climactic episode too. So memorable, yes.
Ananth, I knew you played Purnia Pandit in Tipu Sultan, but I didn't know you were so close to the fire and narrowly escaped the great fire in Mysore. My God, I'm sure it still gives you goosebumps when you think of it.
I mean, talk of narrow escapes. I mean, you sometimes think of miracles in life, and you think of this because so near and so far, and you were destined not to be there, and yet just about not to be there. So I guess that was, you know, providential, and God willed it so. But also, one's heart goes out to all those who lost their lives, and that is the biggest ever tragedy in the history of filmmaking in the world. And to be there is and to have escaped, all that you can do is thank your stars. And because that journey that I have described to the Mysore Premier Studios is something which I think readers should read, because portents, it gives you, at every point someone's trying to tell you don't go. And is it really true? Does it really happen? And it happened. And after this whole fire incident, there was this film which I was doing called Wish Kanya, with Jagmohan Mundra. That was Jagmohan Mundra's first film before Kamla. And Pooja Bedi was, uh, I was with Pooja Bedi. I was playing a driver or something. And there was this scene where they set fire to the hut, the house, because they feel that Pooja is a Vishkanya and they want to kill her. And she's not in the house, but I'm in the house, and the whole hut goes up in fire. And Mundra and the action director and all, are you okay? Are you all right? Strangely, I didn't feel a fear for fire.
Wow.
And but it was, I suddenly there, why am I not running away from, why am I trying not to, trying to not to save myself or keep away and take precautions. And I was just there, lying there. There's a photograph of me lying there with fire all around me, and I was just pretending to be like horrified because of the performance, but nothing was happening. And I wondered where it came from, and then suddenly I remembered, maybe something died there at Premier Studios, some fear.
Yeah, and you will read about it on the book. Please pick up a copy. But Ananth actually herded a lot of his fellow actors just before the fire on the sort of Tipu Sultan set, saying, let's go back to the hotel room. And, Nina Gupta, her daughter at the time, Masaba. In fact, I just spoke to the mother-daughter duo a couple of days ago because their show is about to launch. And here was I reading your book where you talk about little Masaba and Nina ji and you traveling back to Bangalore. Wow.
Yes, in fact, I was so extremely tired after that journey because I had got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, not had a drop of water to drink. We were there at the studio straight away, and then I was pleading with some of my co-stars. Let's go. They had given us residential rooms in a building. Let's go. Yeah, we're not shooting today. Why are we waiting here and wasting our time? Let's go. And I need some rest. Hey, come on, guys. So some of them unwillingly got into the van, some of them willingly got into the van, and we just drove out. And it must have happened just as we drove out of the gate. Yes, that whole journey from Mysore to Bangalore, with Nina, sitting in front and me at the back, and Nina going into this post office and making this trunk call. And then we landed up at Shankar Nag's house. I tell you, Rishi, the taste of the sambar that they gave us, that is still lingering on my tongue. I can't forget that. That was the first meal I'd had in 2 days, and so many thoughts running in your mind. The hunger wasn't prime at that point of time. It wasn't so overwhelming, but probably, the sambar tasted much better than it was.
Now, there were mythologicals, but also historicals in terms of, you mentioned them very briefly, but Govind Nilani and Shyam Benegal were two of the filmmakers who made television their hunting ground and really created modern television as we know it. Here was Tamas by Govind Bhai and Jawaharlal Nehru's Discovery of India, remade as Bharate Khoj for television
Yeah,
by Shyam Benegal. And then Chanakya happened,
right.
which was Dr. Chandraprakash Dwivedi. So again, these are all masters of their craft, and I can only visualize or picture what you must have been going through when all this was around you, or were you just too busy working?
No, no, of course, we were very aware, and that's one of the reasons why I could write this book, because I had not made any notes. The notes were all here in the head, and thank God they would stayed there, because it was very important. It was, I remember when Tipu Sultan was being shot, the controversy started off, of course, with the fire. And then when we moved on to Jaipur, and a lot of people said that Bhagwan Gidwani's novel is not historical, it went to court. And right up till 9:45 on that particular day, we 9:45 was the telecast time at that point. We were not sure whether Tipu Sultan would come on or not. So I remember I just went off to Pune, just checked into a hotel, and just wanted to sort of de-stress. And I put on this very rickety television set to see if anything happened at 9:45, and there it came on. Naushad's glorious tune came up, and in all its splendor, which I couldn't recreate, of course, on that particular television set, Tipu Sultan came on, and I knew that I had a job going, because we had just shot about 10 episodes before it went on air. So I knew that the rest of the year would have me playing Purnaya Pandit. So that was a great relief. So Tipu went through a lot of roadblocks, a lot of controversies, a lot of questions whether it would come on at all. And despite all that disclaimer in the beginning, which was, which would take you at least 10 minutes to read, and it was there only for 10 seconds on the screen, people just took to it, because I think it was the first real spectacular show on television, despite Mahabharata and Ramayana, because the elephants, the war sequences, the recreation of the British and the Sultan's brigade, and the confrontations and the palaces, all of them were real. We shot in real palaces. There were no studios. We shot in real palaces in Jaipur. So the splendor was 70 mm. Naushad's music was absolutely magnificent. And it was the beginning of the real big television show.
You've cultivated some wonderful friendships, which you talk about in the book. You worked with Mahmood Saab in Basera, and you called him Bhaijan. There's a wonderful picture of him having autographed it for you.
Yeah.
Of course, your friendship with Hema Malini is something you did talk about. You practically scripted the finale episode, and then you directed Sharmila Tagore in Mrig Trishna, which you almost
Yeah.
didn't do.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about Mahmood Saab, and then go on to La Tagore, who you met later, many years
Yes.
later,
Yeah.
and she had no recollection or very little recollection of Mrig Trishna.
Mahmood Saab, of course, see, I mean, there was a time when all leading actors were pretty wary of him, knowing that he was in the film. And it was always like Pran Saab and Pran. It used to be and Mahmood in the billing, in the credits. And he was the scene stealer, the proverbial scene stealer. You couldn't sort of, hold a candle to it. So just imagine how my damn good luck that someone cast me, opposite Mahmood, and I was playing his buddy, dear friend, the guy who keeps giving him all these, crazy ideas of how to get out of problems, actually entwining him more further into the problem. And so we set up talking, and for me it was, meeting all these people like Ashok Kumar or Mahmood Saab, all the veterans. For me, it was a godsend, because one would never get this opportunity at that age, in your late 20s, to actually rub shoulders with all these people and listen to their experiences, learn about them, and probably, look at a future that wasn't anything like theirs, but much more different and difficult. And how would you actually conduct yourself? So Baijan had a lot of experiences to tell me, and of course some very humorous ones, like the autograph one, have been recounted in the book. Of course, he always had this, somewhere inside, he had this little pang of remorse that most of his friends did not, acknowledge what he did for them. I don't want to name them here, because that's very, very private. There are some very big names too that he mentioned. I haven't mentioned them in the book too, but I mean, there is a hint, and you can make out who is who. He was a sad man somewhere within, be romantic. And he was sitting with one of the leading ladies, and I almost went up to him like, I normally sit down in a makeup room. Hey, come on, let's talk. And then I realized, I said, am I disturbing? And he said, yes, you are. And I walked out of the room. So, and yes, the sad, happy, funny man Mahmood was, and when he died, of course, we all know that very few people turned up. I mean, a legendary, comic actor like him. So that was Mahmood Saab, and yes, what was the other side?
Well, Soha and you are friends now,
Yes, of course, yeah.
but her
Sharmila
mother,
ji, Sharmila
Sharmila ji,
ji.
almost didn't do Mrik
Yeah.
Trishna.
No, there was a very ambitious producer, Mr. Babbar, Dinesh Babbar from Delhi, who made me make my first real, I would say not a full length, but it was 75-minute feature film on the Punjab, when Punjab, the insurgency in the Punjab was at its peak. And I was lucky to have Dr. Rahim Masoom Raza write the script for that film called Sambandh. It was about the killings in Punjab. And that went down very well with Doordarshan, because it was telecast on the prime 9 a.m. slot on Sunday, which was after Ramayana Mahabharata. And so Dinesh Babbar was now Doordarshan's blue-eyed boy, and they gave him another film. And they said, let's do something, a takeoff on the Maradona drug scandal. Let's do something on the footballer, and let's do an adaptation, Indian adaptation. Dinesh Babbar called me and said, you know what? I have spoken to Sharmila ji, and Sharmila ji is ready to play the doctor in this film who is rehabilitating this boy who is on drugs, this footballer. So I don't get any time for prep. I just go there 2 days before the shoot, and I tell Sharmila ji, this is it, this is what it is. This is the doctor. This doctor has lost her own son to the world of drugs, and when she sees this boy, she sees her son in him, and she starts rehabilitating him. So this, is the fulcrum of the film. This is the conscience keeper of the film. So she said, Ananth, I don't know whether I should get full-time into television.
Wow.
It's a full-time part, and it's a full 90-minute film. Would you prefer if I just come up tomorrow and just give a nice introduction to the film and be done with it? Would that be okay with you? I was shaken for a moment. For a moment, I saw visions of me doing the film without her. Absolutely. There I was shooting without her. There was another actress in her part. But then I don't know what came over me. I sort of composed myself. I said, Shamla ji, you don't need to do this. You certainly don't need to do this. You have done the best films in life. I can never forget Mausam. I can never forget Aradhana. I can never forget Namkeen. I can't forget anything that you have done. I can't forget Devi. I can't forget your films with Satyajit Ray. Aranya Dinaratri, all those films. So there is no need for you to do it. Absolutely no need for you to do it. But I need you. And forget me letting you down. I can't let myself down at this point. She said, all right, what time do I report?
Wow. Lovely.
I couldn't believe it. But I somewhere, it taught me a lesson that if you are convinced about what you want to do, if you are passionate, if the energies are positive, if you are honest, and if you really want some things to be done, if you go there half-hearted and you say, all right, well, if that's it, then thank you very much. No, that never give up attitude, that, a certain stubbornness and perseverance has seen me through till today. Otherwise, I always feel that, somewhere I'm still after 40 years, the odd man out here. And I'm not saying that for any effect. Let me tell you, it is the harsh truth. And if I have survived, maybe it is because of some kind of, inner perseverance and stubbornness combined with a lot of, hard, industrious approach to your work that has let me be.
Ananth Mahadevan's Once Upon a Prime Time, his journey on Indian television, is really a fascinating treatise on everything that he's been through, and it also parallelly tracks the growth of the rise and rise of television in this country. Please go get it. It's an absolute gripping read. Now, the satellite TV boom, Ananth, Star versus Z happened. Z was number one, then Star took over, and you were frantically busy. You were directing Hera Pheri, Main, Kohra, some big shows. The end of the DD Metro channel happened. The 9X, sorry, beg your pardon, the Channel 9 band.
Yeah.
And you had Junoon opposite Tanuja, which was appreciated by Mrinal Sen. And then, of course, you directed Ghungat Ke Pat Khol. Uh, and then there was Zaban Sambal Ke happening, Dekh Bhai Dekh happening. But what was really close to your heart was Partho Ghosh's Chamatkar and Farooq Sheikh's friendship. And the fact that the great man actually wrote handwritten letters to you, and he also gave you a valuable lesson on slowing down when
Yeah.
all of this was happening in your life.
I think Farooq Sheikh was one singular influencing factor amongst all the people I worked with, because he was the only person who believed in me. He never lost faith in me. Every time I went to him with a script, every time I went to him with a thought or a concept, he said, Ananth, do it. And do it because you need to break away. You need to do something different. And if you are, thinking this way, this is the way to go. Do it. The only thing is that your hands are in every pie. You've got so much on your hands. Just drop it and do something useful. There was this one moment when I was like, there was this what was the unbridled energy in me to just work, like a maniac. And it was, a little harmful in the sense that I was driving everyone crazy on the set, even trying not to have, skip lunch so that I could complete my episode in time. And there was one of these afternoons when Farooq Sheikh Sahab was said, I'm going home for lunch. And I said, sir, today, if you could just skip it and, if you could just shoot. And he called me aside and said, Anand, dekho, we are not competing for the Oscars. We are not making a masterpiece here. We're working. We're working well. So take it easy. Have lunch. I'll come back and we'll still finish. He brought that calm into me. I was a very restless worker, a very restless soul. And he brought a certain calm into me. And I could see I could still remember his face when once I told him, sir, you won't believe what happened today. I turned down an offer. And he said, finally. Okay, now you're starting, he said. He used to come home, he used to talk to me, we used to watch films together, we used to eat together. There was this lovely South Indian, or there is rather lovely South Indian restaurant called Banana Leaf at Warsaw, where we used to go. And it's the most embarrassing thing about eating with him is that he never let you pay. Once it's all right, you let him pay once. The next round you want to pay. No, he will not. He will somehow manipulate it in such a way that you don't realize when he asked for the check. And there was this long period when he was out of Mumbai, and he was in his farm. He was making his charitable, and he was doing this show called Jeena Isi Ka Naam Hai on Z. So we lost touch for a long time, except on telephone. So once we spoke, and he said, Ananth, I think that Banana Leaf is going to close down if we keep away for such a long time, because they lose their most important clientele. And well, after that. I still can't believe he's the only person I can't believe is not with me. There are a lot of people whom I can't believe, like Dev Saab, for example, and all the greats who are not. But Farooq Saab had no reason to go. He had a lot of work ahead of him, and I had a lot of work for him. And every time today I do a particular film or a project, I would think how wonderfully he would have fitted in and how much he would have patted me on the back and encouraged me. And he would always say, sir, I have a script. Who's writing it? The first question, who is writing it? Because he was aware that there is a famine of writers. There are no real writers. And he always paid attention to the script. So today, the first thing I do when I start is make sure that the script is written well. Farooq Sheikh is almost within me, in me. He lives in me today. and I almost emulate him every step of my life.
It's very beautifully put. And it wasn't easy for you either, Ananth, because this boom also brought with it channels shutting down, left you in the red as a producer, BITV, NEPC. Um, would you say you were not a very good businessman at the time?
Absolutely. I still say I'm not a good businessman. If I were a good businessman, forget producing, I would have at least got the price that I deserved for whatever I did as an actor or as a filmmaker. Never got myself to demand a price, never got myself to sort of, get something for myself, which I thought I would deserve. So, no regrets at all. I mean, it's not the money. Eventually, I always tell people it's very important to be enriched here than in the pocket. So there are two ways of being rich, either in the mind or in the pocket. And I'm quite enriched. So no regrets, but yes, I'm a very poor businessman. And I have people literally walking all over me, depriving me of even what was contractually due to me. So that's the war I'm fighting. But I guess I don't blame them as much as I blame myself.
As much as Mahmood Saab and Hrishikesh Mukherjee and Farooq Sheikh saw you flourish and grow, you've seen a fair amount of your actors flourish and grow. And you did mention at the beginning of this interview about Ghar Jamai and how it returned, with Satish Shah and Mahadevan. And then Mahadevan signs Alay Payode with Mani Ratnam. But then it again is a wonderful association because he gets back to do Dil Vil Pyar Vyar with you in 2016. But it must have made you very happy to see Maddie's rise.
Yes, that is not the only instance. In fact, it's a strange, uncanny coincidence that any person I work with, if whether it's a new film company, production company, whether it's a new actor, or whether even it's a new studio, a dubbing studio or an edit studio, when I step into it and I step out, and the next time either the man is too busy or the woman is too busy for me to give me dates, or the studio is too occupied to give me time for my next this thing. So I suddenly realized that I have been very, very lucky for everyone whom I work with. And today I talk like Jesus Christ. I tell them that, when Christ told Judas that at the stroke of the midnight hour, you will betray me thrice. And I tell all these studios and these people, 3 years down the line, when I come to you, you will tell me that I have no time or dates for you. But I am very happy doing that. If there is a divine power of me actually being fortunate for all those I work with, so be it. I consider that a blessing.
Ah, that's really sweet. You make no bones of the fact that you're a little disappointed with the turn that television has taken. Um, the Supernatural series started off, you directed Devi for Ajay Devgan. Madhu was supposed to do it first, then Motherhood beckoned. Sakshi Tanwar happened, then BP Singh's Ahat. And then, all the reality shows. How do you still view that? I mean, you're not very happy with people getting married on air via Swayamvar, celebrities getting put in a tank with reptiles, the Big Boss house, lie detector tests in Sach Ka Samna. But you did do reality television much before all of these people did it, and I leave you to tell that.
Yes, actually, there was this very, very popular show called, Candid Camera. And if you see all the old episodes from America, I mean, it was hilarious. And there were these snippets where, suddenly a man would pop out of the manhole and start walking on the street, and everyone would look at him, and he would come and try to attack people. And then suddenly the camera would pop up and say, "Hey, you're on camera. So what do you think about this?" So there was this producer of mine, Jhelam Ratna, who adapted this. She called it Freeze, You're on Camera. And it was on Doordarshan. It was on the breakfast show. And at that point of time, fortunately or unfortunately, I was a known face. I had done Ados Pados and Ghar Jamai. And they were a little apprehensive of whether to let me loose as the anchor on the streets when we were pulling off these stunts. So there was this very pretty babe whom we planted on the road, and she had opened the bonnet of the car, and she was trying to start the car when this man comes along, and he looks at the car and he says, "What happened?" And she says, "It's not starting." And he says, "Oh, there must be a problem with the battery," you know. And she says, "No, but there is no battery." "What? you run a car without batteries? Yeah, this runs without batteries. No. This is not possible. How is it possible? No, but there is this thing. It is always run without the battery. Oh, then there must be something with the spark plug. Wait a minute, let me just check. And he goes inside and he starts it. Now this is connected to a battery which is hidden. You know, so the car starts and says, there, I told you, I knew. It was a spark plug. See, it has nothing to do with the battery. And then I come across and say, okay, do you really feel that, this car can start without the battery? And then he looks at me and said, hey, I've seen you somewhere. No, sir, but do you really feel that this? No, I've seen you somewhere. And so, there's a camera out there, and you are on a program called Free. What the? So, we had this great fun. Today, all these so-called punches that most of these some radio shows are doing, and all these
the bakaras
and everything are all nothing new. We started this. So this was real for real. We took an elephant to Kushu Bagh at Kolaba, and we told a lady that she has won the Mammoth Maharashtra state lottery. And she saw this huge elephant and she said, no, you keep them. So we've done these kind of things. There was a time when it failed miserably, where we left a suitcase with 40,000 rupees at that point of time on the street, and we hid ourselves and we were trying to find out what was happening. And no one came forward to touch it. Nobody. So I said, okay, we'll pick it up and we keep it somewhere else. And as I went to pick it up, there was a crowd that came down. Hey, don't touch it. It's a bomb. Don't touch it. And then I had to be rescued literally by the crew saying that, no, we are shooting, So we've done these kind of things, and totally unpredictable. The so-called reality shows of today are all scripted. They are all a facade. Yeah. I mean, everyone knows what's happening. Whether it is emotional, whether it's dramatic, whether it's action-packed, whether it's a musical, whether whatever. The only thing I like about it is the kind of young talent it's throwing up in some of the music competitions, where you see that a lot of good singers come to the fore. Unfortunately, all these singers just disappear after winning these contests, and you do not know where all the the Indian idols have gone, all the people who have won these awards. So that's another story. But
and you must sorry to interrupt, you must pick up the book Once Upon a Primetime Ananth Mahadevan to find out which contest he won, and he didn't get the flight tickets to where he was supposed to go.
Yes, please do that. I hope the channel is listening.
You rue the fact that comedy has taken a wrong turn on television. I mean, you lived through the Ye Jo Hai Zindagi era, and then you did a remake of Ye Jo Hai Zindagi for Red Chillies. Then there was Vagle Ki Duniya, the wonderful Kundan Shahs. And people have told you that Sarabhai versus Sarabhai is really something inspired by your creation. Then you saw it go downhill with R.K. Lakshman Ki Duniya, and of course Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma, and this and that. So seriously disappointed with the way comedy has taken a turn, and do you think there is hope of deliverance? The turnaround will happen.
The humor has definitely gone out of our, if not lives, thinking, because we don't have real humorists who write. And when you keep reading Neil Simon and Woody Allen and Billy Wilder, you realize that the level of humor in the world is far, far, far superior to what you had. And we were fortunate, the shows you mentioned, we were fortunate that there was some wit, some humor, and especially R.K. Lakshman with his Vagle Ki Duniya episodes was very, very interesting. But today, what is passing off as humor, the total silliness and the total foolhardy behavior, even when you take a satire, what was supposed to be a satire, like Tarak Mehta Ka Ulta Chashma, when the author first wrote it in Gujarati, it did cut some ice, but they should have just stopped there, but continuing it made it, totally caricaturish, totally loud, over the top, and then it begins to grate on your senses. And most of the humor today is not humor at all. It's all forced laughter. And they don't even attempt a laughter track, because they know that, it's not meant to be laughed at anymore or laughed with anymore. So where are the humorists gone? Where are they? Even when during our Chamatkar times or Gharjamai times, we used to write, rewrite, and make the writer rewrite even without the channel telling us, because these days the channels dictate what humor is or what should be written or what should be scripted. We used to take that onus on ourselves as directors and make them rewrite. And the kind of writers we used to have, we had Ranjan Bose, who used to write for Bashu Chatterjee. We had Satish Bhatnagar, who used to write for B.R. Chopra. We had Govind Muniz. We had Bhushan Banwali, who wrote for Gulzar. I mean, these were the writers who used to write my scripts. So you could imagine the kind of standard these scripts had. Where are the writers today? Give me one good humorist who's going to write a real fun show for television. So I don't see it turning around also, at least not in the near future, unless someone really pops up and says, hey, what do you think of that? Wasn't that funny?
Let's sign off with KBC. In Indian television, they say there was life before Kaun Banega Crorepati and life after Kaun Banega Crorepati. And that really played out in front of your eyes. Sameer Nair, Deepak Sehgal, Tarun Katyar, round about the time Star was hoping for a resurrection and they signed Amitabh Bachchan. And you do mention that it's not all providence, because Mr. Bachchan actually went to London to see Chris Tarrant.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned SRK taking over and then Mr. Bachchan returning. Yeah. So I think that'll be a nice way to end this interview, talking about KBC.
Yeah, well, just a couple of hours ago, Mr. Bachchan has tweeted that he's back on the sets of KBC, and it's been 20 years. So Mubarak ho, well done, well conducted. And all that I would say is that, yes, before KBC and after KBC, because it happened exactly at the turn of the millennium. All the shows that I was and others were doing, like Main, Sambhav, Cincinnati Bubla, all were taken off air to accommodate KBC every day at 9 o'clock. And people were a little apprehensive in the beginning as to what a quiz show would be like, except that Mr. Bachchan was on the show, because they had seen Derek Cobra and we have had Bonvita quiz contest both on radio and television. So was it something like that, or was it something else? And then, of course, the big prize money, and how everyone felt that they could solve the first 5 rounds so easily and wish that they were sitting in front of him and at least getting a lakh of rupees, if not a crore. So this was the great escapist entertainment, infotainment on television that changed the landscape of Indian television. And I would say, although it has gone into a melodramatic zone, or it has gone into so-called socially relevant tearjerker zones and social, causes, it still has its attraction. And I don't think anybody but Mr. Bachchan can really pull it off, because he has the persona, he has the larger-than-life feel, and he looks like one who would know the answers.
This is just the tip of the iceberg, this hour-plus interview with Ananth Mahadevan. Once Upon a Prime Time is definitely a must-get. Ananth Mahadevan writes about his journey on Indian television, and if you've sampled a bit of this interview, you'd know that it's not just his life, but the industry as he's seen it unfold in front of his eyes. Thank you very, very much for your time, your patience, your energy, and there's still miles to go before you sleep. So we hope to keep more and more of you.
I have just started off. So now I feel that I am there at the starting point. I'm waiting for that pistol to go off, and I'm all set to take off.
Lovely. Thank you, Ananth. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks.